Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, joined today by a man many of you guys here on YouTube will recognize from his YouTube content and his contributions there, as well as the comments section and various other articles at RosterWatch.com. His name is Alan Seslowsky. You can find him on Twitter at Alan Seslowsky, Seslowsky. And you guys might not know, you might not have heard. Maybe, Alan, you can just kind of talk about it. Our partnership with Dynasty Depot, which is going to be they have plans to do some really cool stuff with FFPC and sort of really revolutionizing the way that Dynasty teams are bought and sold in different ways, angles you can play with that. They have they've had their soft launch. They have their big launch coming up soon, and RosterWatch will be their exclusive provider of Dynasty rankings. That's something that, I'll be overseeing, that you're going to be heading up. And I figured it'd be fun to have a podcast now that I'm texting you all the goddamn time, all this bullshit about what I think of the rankings. I'm like, let's just get on a podcast and talk it out. So, Alan, introduce yourself and tell them what it is that you're doing.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for being one of three people that pronounces my name correctly. Having grown up in grade school with everyone calling me Seslowsky, and everything like that. And you saying Alan Seslowsky, it warms my soul. You talked about the partnership that RosterWatch is doing with Dynasty Depot. And I when you first had Nelson from Dynasty Depot on your podcast, a lights went off in my head. I thought this was such a cool idea. Now, you and I, one of the things that we've talked about is one of the most fun things in Dynasty Fantasy Football is drafting the team, but not everybody is as confident or as experienced or can do rookie evaluations like you do and can draft the team. So what Dynasty Depot is a place where you can go in and with their partnership with FFPC, if you have a Dynasty team there, you could take your team and actually put it on the market and sell it to somebody else. Or if you want to go in and buy a team that's already won a championship, a team that's in rebuild mode and is loaded with first round picks, you don't have to go in. You can start from that point. So let's just say there's a high stakes league. Let's call it a $250 league. It could be a $500 league. Doesn't matter. You can go in there and you can make a bid on a team that has gutted itself and has Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown on it, and 3 first-round picks. So you can start from any chapter. It's like playing a video game. You could start from any chapter of the life of that Dynasty team. And I think it's such a cool idea. I can't wait to buy my first team this summer.
Well, and the other thing is, it's like if you use our tools, or if you're a good drafter like we are, and you just go into one of these Dynasty drafts and you just draft the nuts, and you're like, dude, this team, the expected value for this team is worth more than that, whatever the $250 buy-in. I'm gonna see if I can auction this thing off for $325 and just make that quick $75 just on the fact that I drafted so well. It's just there's a million different ways that you can play it. Regardless, it's Dynasty Depot. I think it's thedynastydepot.com. But we're gonna have our rankings on there exclusively.
Yeah. Alex, I was just gonna say, one of the things that I hear on the RosterWatch.com message boards all the time is, in addition to all the thousands of questions, who should I start? It's, when are you guys gonna have Dynasty rankings? I mean, RosterWatch year after year get shout outs from Matthew Berry, from the Podfather, from everybody about having, hey, thanks for letting me know about Antonio Gibson, in December. And right. It's time that RosterWatch, I'm glad that we're doing it this year, is going to finally put up some rock solid Dynasty rankings with all of our collaboration.
And, we've always had the Dynasty rookie draft rankings. We've always had our rookie rankings. That's what we do all offseason, of course. But this is different. We've never had Dynasty startup rankings. So we're going to be talking in the context of sort of this first run, this primer, this first look at the 2021 Dynasty startup rankings. And for the sake of, since we haven't done our evaluation yet on the, I don't know how I'm going to stack up, Rondale Moore versus Rashad Bateman, or Najee Harris versus Travis Etienne, or you know what I mean? We're not going to be talking specifically about where rookies could fall here, but we're going to be talking about sort of the veteran players, the veteran player pool. And as we get our evals done on the rookies, we will then be saying all right, well, look, we had 20 21 RB1 slotted right around here. So it's looking like that's going to be more like it's, this guy or this guy or this guy. And those things will evolve. But I think it brings up some good discussions just right now to talk about it. And the first thing I just want to talk about right off the very top is this Alvin Kamara slotting. Alvin Kamara looks like he'll be age 25. And I think I would rather have Saquon Barkley in Dynasty than Alvin Kamara. And my reasoning is Saquon Barkley is 2 years younger. Saquon Barkley coming out was the better prospect. And Alvin Kamara is just, I've been worried about this 3-game sample that we've seen with Taysom Hill about the targets. The target share is falling precipitously. And I don't know if I can count every week like we had this last week with Alvin Kamara, where I'm going to get the 100 yards and a touchdown from him on the ground. It doesn't seem as likely as it was whenever he had this weighted opportunity of like a wide receiver 2 to where he was getting a 25+% target share. Drew Brees is he's the best screen game quarterback in the National Football League. He's not long for the league. They've already said, there was a report this morning from Rap Sheet saying, not that we can trust anything that guy says this. He's fallen off this year, by the way. But he was saying that these last 3 weeks have really inspired confidence on Taysom Hill being the future moving forward. I don't know how I feel more comfortable with Saquon Barkley than I do with Alvin Kamara right here at the very top. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're doing dynasty rankings at the top, the thing that you want to make sure that you do in the first round is don't step on a landmine. So both of these players, we're not going to know the result of who should be fourth and who should be fifth until it's all over, right? I mean, both of them are good picks, but when we're on the clock, roster watch subscribers will want to know, who should I take, Saquon Barkley, or should I take Alvin Kamara in the first round of a startup? And I think just going back to like the guiding fundamental principles of how I'm ranking dynasty players is, I think dynasty is a shorter term game than most think. It's a 2 to 3 year game. It's not, you often hear, I'm going to have this player for the next 10 years. We might all be dead in 10 years. Who knows? For running backs, let's think of it in 2 to 3 year windows. For wide receivers, maybe 3 to 4 year windows. Okay. That said, Saquon Barkley, better prospect, probably a better running back. But let's look at the situation that he's in. Let's look at the now building resume of injuries he's had. And there's no doubt everything you said about Alvin Kamara is true. You're almost wondering whether you could start him in your fantasy playoffs because of the drop-off that there hasn't been the short passing game from Drew Brees. That's a major concern. But you have to think someone like Sean Payton is going to get that corrected. He's looking at the same things we are. Hey, wait a second. We're not getting our best short pass catcher. And he has Michael Thomas too. So you have to think those things will get corrected. There's been a couple of years of banked production. And again, I don't know who's going to be right at the end. I don't know if Saquon Barkley is the better pick. I don't know if Alvin Kamara is the better pick. What I know is that I am going to fade injury optimism, and if I'm on the clock here, I prefer Alvin Kamara, but I don't think there's any good reason to fight it or push and pull Saquon Barkley. Everything you said is correct.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe as we start getting some consensus. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not comfortable going against consensus to make sure that Alvin Kamara is ahead of Saquon Barkley. If that makes sense, I'm not comfortable saying like everybody else is wrong and I'm right that Alvin Kamara should be taken in front of Saquon Barkley, because for me it's like I think what David Gettleman's done over this offseason has been low-key kind of sharp.
Yes.
I think that Joe Judge is good. I think that their defensive coordinator, I forget his name, that defensive coordinator is good. I think the defense is getting better. Andrew Thomas has looked better and better, through the course of the season. It looks like that offensive line is starting to come around. Saquon is Saquon.
Right.
I don't know. So that's my only concern is if we start seeing it being a consensus that Alvin Kamara is going ahead of Saquon Barkley, I think it's fine. But if it turns out that we are going against the current, jamming a Kamara ahead of Saquon Barkley, I feel like that's not a hill that we need to be dying on.
Well, they're likely going to be back-to-back picks, within 3 picks. I mean, if Kamara goes at 6 and Barkley goes at 9 or vice versa, you're going to see it differently in different drafts. And of course, yes, there is that whole wisdom of crowds thing. What is the market push and pull of that? Now, we've seen Wayne Gallman break a couple big runs where he got tackled 30 yards in. Obviously, Saquon would have broke those, right? But now does this amazing performance. This is the same team that Saquon Barkley was getting hit in the backfield with. Now, I know, like you said, you've pointed out smartly that Andrew Thomas has improved, and they overall the offense is started to gel a little bit.
And the defense is playing better complementary football.
Absolutely. But now does Wayne Gallman add a little bit of cap the ceiling of Saquon Barkley? It doesn't sound like that, that sounds crazy, but maybe this is somebody that, if Saquon's had a couple of years of injuries, so instead of being a 24 touch player, maybe he becomes a 17 or 18 touch player. It's possible. I just think there's more question marks about Saquon Barkley. He's a rock solid with risk first round pick. I like what I've seen in the banked production department from Alvin Kamara, which is why I prefer him. But your point about fading consensus is a dangerous game, but that's why we're doing this now. That's why we're getting ahead of everybody and hashing these thoughts out now, because often I like to go back to my original thoughts, which is right now. And because those original thoughts get polluted by ADP, they get polluted by consensus.
I get it. And I can already tell, look, this is just going to be a running backs podcast. We'll do a wide receiver one next week or something. Okay. But the next guy, and I like the way that this generally looks. I think I like the way it looks basically all the way down until we get down to like running back. Here's a group for me. Running back, where you have running backs 11 through 13, and it's the rookies. It's guys like Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor. There are a few things to me. I think that Jonathan Taylor should be on top of all those guys. Yeah. He's the best prospect. He's got the best offensive line. He's getting better and better. With every week that goes by, he's becoming a more and more a sort of a less and less attainable option. I was telling you in the notes that, like, I've been trying to trade away Antonio Gibson for Jonathan Taylor, like with an extra piece, and I can't get that deal done in a pretty sharp dynasty league. So, which makes me think that the value of Jonathan Taylor has gotten to the point where it's probably a little bit higher than Antonio Gibson's right now. And when I think about Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus him, yes, he's in the better offensive system. Yeah, and it's the question is, how much do you factor in that, God damn it, he's in the Mahomes offense. Like, that's a big deal. But they've shown that he's not going to be the workhorse there. He's pretty slow. He looks pretty small. They're not using him in the passing game the way that you would like. How did you like? What do you think about my statement that Jonathan Taylor should be on top of these three?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor's squarely back in the circle of trust, isn't he? You remember a couple weeks ago when we were, you couldn't even start him. Yeah. For dynasty players and dynasty discussions, we sure not. When I say we, I mean the dynasty players, the dynasty analysts. We sure are. What have you done for me lately? Who's the hot guy this week? Right? We get swayed by that. Now with a toe injury to Antonio Gibson and Jonathan Taylor producing a couple 20-pointers, we're swinging the other way. Yes, Roster Watch had Jonathan Taylor as their clear-cut RB1 in this class. And when you have someone as your RB1, you're not saying, hey, they're definitely going to be the number one overall guy. You're saying, hey, this is the rock guy that we are confident is going to finish as a top 2 or 3 rookie running back. And you were right. And it looks like all the rookies are coming on now. It's funny, for the whole season, we had Antonio Gibson, who was mostly startable, and James Robinson were the 2 best rookie running backs. Now, as we're getting into the stretch run of the seasons, Swift is about to come on. You have Taylor, who's back in the circle of trust, and Cam Akers has some optimism around him. So now, also the other thing, when you said that you could trade away Gibson for Taylor, the problem is, people know about you, Alex. They know that you, even in a sharp league, that you are amongst the sharp evaluators. Anytime that you want to do a challenge trade, and what I mean by that, a same positional trade, people are going to be dubious and skeptical. You're going to have.
I even added a throw in. I added a Sterling Shepard and couldn't get it.
People are onto you. They automatically think that you're up to something because of who you are. Now, if you're in a room of strangers, aliens that didn't know who you are, that's one thing. So you're going to have to add a little more trickery. No one's going to do a challenge trade with you.
All right. Well, so let me just you mentioned James Robinson, and I mean, he's been the best rookie this year. Like he wasn't the best prospect coming out. We certainly loved him. We were on to him before anybody else. We drafted him on all of our season-long teams, wherever other people, waited to pick him up off of waivers. And to me, there's a juxtaposition here at this point in the rankings where Miles Sanders is sort of around there too. Yeah. Miles Sanders is only a year older than James Robinson. James Robinson's an old rookie. He's an undrafted free agent. He doesn't have any pedigree attached to his name in the NFL draft. He's going to have a new general manager who's not going to keep – I don't think that they'll keep Marone around or any of these guys or, Gruden. It's going to be a whole new offensive system. The worry with James Robinson that I would think that you would see is that a new regime might not be committed to this UDFA Jag. I guess he's a Jag in two different ways.
Right.
But here's the other thing. Couldn't a new general manager come in there and say if he's sharp, he could say, "Holy shit, look at this guy. He looks like a Maurice Jones-Drew. I have him on a UDFA contract for the next 3 years. He's shown he can hold up for the rest of the time. Look, I got running back taken care of. We all know this is not where you want to dedicate resources. Let's get things going with J-Rob here. Let's build around the offense. They're gonna have the number 2 pick, so they're probably gonna get Justin Fields that they're gonna want to build around. And then, I mean, dude, imagine James Robinson standing next to a zone read style runner that can hurt you with his legs. We know the effect that can have on these guys. Sure, they'll bring in competition. Sure, they'll do all this, but how much there's an argument that he should be offensive rookie of the year. Like, at what point do we trust him to be like, well, up against Miles Sanders, he's got a donkey for a head coach. He has a guy that won't play him. He's a guy that's shown that he's committed to a committee. Was Miles Sanders the better prospect? Yes, he was the much better prospect. But it's like they put in if he's so good a prospect, why is Boston Scott playing? Why is Corey Clement playing? Why do they fucking activate to the 53-man roster Jordan Howard and get him in the second quarter of the game last week? It's like I can't trust the coaching staff. I don't know what's going on at the quarterback position. So how do we dice up these two? Because if it was me and you put a gun on my head and I'm in a draft lobby and I'm choosing between James Robinson and Miles Sanders, I'm clicking on James Robinson.
Yeah. And if that all great points. The NFL head coaches are more like redraft players. Like if they don't get it right now, they're getting fired. Whereas GMs are more like dynasty players, right? GMs are more like, hey, I have a 2 to 3 year window. And, when you talk about dynasty rankings, I think you got to talk about players that are insulated. And what I mean by insulated are what do their contracts look like? How many years are they guaranteed? And what is their draft pedigree? All right. So Miles Sanders probably is insulated from a perspective of that he is, he was a second round pick. And you took him in your dynasty league. You took him with the top 3 pick. James Robinson, all he did was produce. He is
in bad game scripts as an underdog. And people in DFS are just like, they're like, I don't get this dude. Yeah. It's like he's a 10-point underdog. This is the lowest total on the goddamn week, and all he does is put up 27-point fucking games. It's just like, imagine if that team got better. Imagine if the offensive line was better. Imagine if they did some things that if they did some things to actually put themselves in scoring position more often.
He's a free square for the next GM. So all the draft capital that they've accumulated, one of them was going to be allocated to a high pedigree running back. Now they don't need to do that. All they need to do is, you and I have talked about if they sign someone, I know he's a restricted free agent like Gus Edwards. I think James Robinson will get a backfield mate. I don't think that they're just going to say, hey, he may be an 18-touch player next year. But my ranking of him assumes that there's going to be another running back that's going to be a 5 to 8 touch player. And I think that's a conservative estimate. You're absolutely right to be excited about James Robinson. I am too. It's just that his lack of insulation, his lack of attachment to the team, could be a good thing or a bad thing. And I think that people will be dubious because he is a UDFA, but you're wanting to push him up the board feels right to me.
Okay, well, how about this what about Joe Mixon? Because he's 24. He's gotten paid. We don't have any of the concerns with him about the organization's feelings toward him. Every time address these guys at the combine. Like I remember, it's just if you juxtapose the way that, say, Bob Quinn used to talk about Kerryon Johnson when I would pester him, and he'd say stuff like, "Yeah, we pretty, we like him. He's a good player. We might need to bring some guys in to, we want to keep these guys fresh. And then you go and ask about Joe Mixon, to what's his name? He's not the GM. He's the EVP of Duke Tobin. You go and ask Duke Tobin about Joe Mixon, and it's like, oh, he's our bell cow. The offense, the offense isn't the same without him. I mean, you've been watching, haven't you? You've been watching. It's almost like, what the fuck are you even asking me this for? What is this dumbass shit? What are you even asking for? Of course, you can see it. He answers questions like that. That organization really likes Mixon. He's young. I don't feel like this injury. It's been bad for this year, much worse than we thought. But it's not like it's a torn ACL or an Achilles or something like that. He's going to be fine next year. They're going to have to address the offensive line because all the phone lines are going to be blown up at Cincinnati. The radio calling all fucking offseason long, saying you guys need to protect Burrow. What the hell are you doing? You let him get his ACL torn, all this stuff. They're going to invest in the offensive line. It's a Joe Burrow offense. They drop back and pass the football 60 times a game. They're going to be in shootouts. They're going to be down near the goal line. And you've even seen, man, it's been so frustrating without Joe Mixon. You see them having to run Giovanni Bernard and Samaje Perine between the tackles down at the goal line. Those were touchdowns in the fantasy column for you if it's Joe Mixon. I feel, is he not – can we not consider him – is he not an RB1 in Dynasty? Shouldn't he be an RB1?
I think you identified the reason why I have him as the 24th ranked running back, or the 20. Where do I have him there? Let's say 17th. So I think Cincinnati finally is going to be embarrassed into bolstering their offensive line. When Joe Mixon came out, I actually liked him better than Dalvin Cook. That's obviously been proven to be incorrect for fantasy, but from a talent perspective, I thought he looked a lot like Le'Veon Bell in his college tape. And the problem is I underestimated how bad. You always heard chatter, and I've heard from you guys talk about how bad the Cincinnati offensive line was. He's been getting hit 2 yards in the backfield. And we saw the upside with Joe Mixon. That's why I don't want to push him any lower. But you're multiple years of him not producing in the first half of the fantasy season. I don't know if you could take that gamble with your second round dynasty pick, with your early third round dynasty pick. I think that Joe Mixon, again, all the talent is there. All the things are set up for him. I don't think we're going to see Joe Burrow in the first 6 weeks.
He's only 24, dude. You cannot take Miles Sanders ahead of Mixon.
Okay, so that is an interesting debate right there. I'm one to think that the Eagles' offense is going to revert back. I think they're going to make the changes. That organization, even though it's been mind-boggling what's happened to it is from offensive perspective, they have proven that they've been able to put it together. Your point about Joe Mixon being the superior player and the workhorse with the allotted workhorse role, it's absolutely correct. I think that there's a good argument to make there. I want to see what would happen if Miles Sanders comes out and just dominates the last 4 weeks. Our mindset might flip there.
With the schedule they have coming up, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Right. But if he gets 5-6 dump offs a game, who knows? That's what I want to see. I want to see how Jalen Hurts plays with him. I know there's a lot of pessimism on Jalen Hurts. I've seen his weekly ranking against the Saints go high, go low. I think that he's going to be all right. What was your initial thoughts on Jalen Hurts? And again, I don't want to pivot away from your question about Mixon, but Hurts's college production from a running perspective, which we know could be good for the running backs. What did you guys have on Hurts before the draft?
Are we talking about his sophomore year at Channelview High School here in Texas? I've been watching Jalen Hurts since he was a sophomore in high school down at these camps. I know his dad, Coach Hurts, and to be honest, Charlie Strong and Sean Watson, those guys didn't even offer him, which was interesting. I thought he looked pretty good at the first camp that I saw him at. Obviously, a coach's son, good player, not the best player at Alabama. I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was anything special at Alabama. Then he gets with Lincoln Riley, and just like what Lincoln Riley does with these dudes, he has them make quick decisions. He teaches I don't know how Lincoln Riley does it with just simply. They've always said that anticipation is something you can't teach, and I say, well, look at fucking Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts at Alabama would have to throw to an open man, whereas at Oklahoma he would throw to a spot and he would throw the guys open. And so like I don't know, I don't think that Peterson's a QB whisperer. I think that he's a bit of a fraud, and that Frank Reich was the reason for
that got away, right?
Frank Reich, what the Eagles did, So I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about Jalen Hurts. I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, because I said earlier with James Robinson, I like the idea of him standing next to a running quarterback. We know that Jalen Hurts, well, he's not the super fast dude. He's super athletic. And if you watch back the Oklahoma stuff, he's kind of like more one of these, like, I'm talking about your Big 12 guys, but he's like one of these like 2019 Sam Ehlinger type runners, where he was like a truck, big, strong, powerful young man with good enough speed. You're not going to worry about him getting out in the open and taking hits, even from NFL caliber defensive players. So I think that there's no guarantee you can stamp on any of these guys' boxes. And I wouldn't say that Jalen Hurts doesn't fall to the second round if he's a super awesome prospect that was a can't miss. But I'm certainly interested and excited to see it. It can't be much worse than Wentz has been.
Yeah. First of all, just side note here, parentheses, like, I love the way you talk about football, Alex Dunlap. I really do. It's, like, I see like your face change when you talk about these prospects going back. It gets me juiced up to talk to you. This is exciting. Jalen Hurts, the college production that last year with the 20 rushing touchdowns, 1,500 rushing yards, that matters. That matters to me. I'm on the side where I think this could happen. Now, yes, the question is, he fell to the second round. If the Eagles didn't take him, where would he have gone? How far would he have fallen? But everyone thought Lamar Jackson, how did he fall to pick 32? How did Hayden Hurst get drafted ahead of Lamar Jackson? All interesting questions, and we may not have the answer after Sunday because it is the Saints defense. But going back to your original question, is Miles Sanders, and the reason we got to Jalen Hurts is because we were talking about Sanders versus Mixon. It's an interesting debate, but how can we ignore that Cincinnati ignoring the offensive line? We hope that it gets better. I just don't think Burrow is going to be back. I'm fading injury optimism here for the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks of the season, and with so far no resume of putting together a good offensive line, Burrow out for 2 months. I'm not going to have a hard time taking Mixon in the 2-3 turn in my dynasty startups. Yeah,
well, I mean, he's young. He's an incredible talent. These are things we're gonna have to get hashed out.
And he has contract insulation for at least 2 more years. Yeah.
Okay. What about Chris Carson, who has no contract insulation? He's 26. He's always hurt. It seems like Seattle might value him, and I hate to say it because our good friend just signed him. He's going to be doing his deal, and I think he'll be gone from Seattle, but maybe not. I mean, Seattle really does like him. It feels like, I don't know. Do you think he would be better off somewhere else? Because the fact of the matter is, even though Seattle seems to like him, they're always bringing in a Carlos Hyde or a DJ Dallas or Travis Homer or any of these dudes. And I know Chris Carson's been banged up so far, and let's try and fade the recency bias of it. But the fact of the matter is, even if you don't, there's always complimentary guys there. It's always something. And you know what? He's always kind of missing time. He's if it's not for injuries, it's for fumbles or stuff like that. I don't know how much I really like Chris Carson over guys who are 5 years younger, right, like Cam Akers, or even David Montgomery, who's 3 years younger, who's, talk about recency bias. I mean, I'm being very recency if I'm saying that I actually like him.
We all do it. We all are recency bias.
But certainly Akers. I mean, I guess I could never imagine taking Chris Carson over Cam Akers in the 2021 Dynasty startup.
Yeah, it sounds crazy because the age, but look, Sean McVay has told us one thing with his game plan: 16 weeks, 16 different game plans. Right now, it's Akers. A few weeks ago, it was Darrell Henderson. Before that, it was Malcolm Brown. I'm saying is that in Dynasty, we should pay attention to age, but it's a 2 to 3 year window, especially for the running backs. What are they going to do next season? What are they going to do the season after? And you smartly pointed out that we don't know where Chris Carson's going to land. All right. Now, it seems like a team like Seattle would try to re-sign him, but I mean, it wouldn't be such a bad thing if Chris Carson replaces Todd Gurley as the Atlanta running back, or a team like that that's looking for a running back. So I think
if he fell to Atlanta, I could see it happen. If he went to Atlanta, I could see it happening. But I think Akers. Look, man, they don't. Malcolm Brown. They're not going to keep Malcolm Brown. They don't like Darrell Henderson. I think Akers being literally 5 years younger. Akers is so young. He's one of the youngest running back prospects in this class, and we've seen it. He's fine. Like the genie's out of the bottle now.
Yep.
I actually like him. He's playing tonight, isn't he?
Yeah. Tonight? Yes, against New England.
I have a decision to make about him in one of my own dynasty leagues, whether I'm going to even play him.
Well, who is it? Akers or who?
Well, it would be Akers or a wide receiver. So it would be Akers or I guess Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, who's in the circle of trust? I mean, that's a tough decision right there.
Well, if DJ Moore I'm not going to know whether DJ Moore is going to go, and I don't even know whether Curtis Samuel was a close contact or whether he has COVID or what the deal is. So I might just have to go Cam Akers, regardless.
Yeah, that makes sense. And your point about age is absolutely right. But let's think about, it's funny. I saw a poll on Twitter, and this will play into perfect what we were just talking about the 5 years to age difference, the situation. It said, the poll that I thought was interesting was, what is your favorite part of Dynasty Fantasy Football? And let me just read you what the options and the percentage was. There was 4 of them. Trading was 30%. This is people who answered their favorite part of Dynasty Football. Lots of draft picks, 20%. Teams with young players and upside, 15%. And winning a championship, only 37%. That means that 30% of people like trading or 50% of people like having picks and trading more than they like winning. And that is true. You've been in these dynasty leagues. People love to win, but they like the other things better. They really do. And we like winning. We like winning.
Well, I like both. I mean, I have in this league that I'm in right now, I thought I was going to be tanking this particular year. That was after I had made a big move to make it to losing the championship last year. I used my 111. This is a Devy league. Mm-hmm. So I had already taken to a bunch of 2021 guys. This is a league where I do have Najee Harris. I have Travis Etienne. I have Rondale Moore. I have all these guys on my taxi squad. And like all of a sudden I'm back in the playoffs. But like, it's just, you can win and build for the future at the same time. But the most important thing you're always thinking about is winning a championship, unless you know you're completely out. Right. And then your best move is to definitely start thinking about the future. But I think Cam Akers,
it's fair.
We need to put a little asterisk by Chris Carson. We can't have him quite that high.
His landing spot will ultimately determine his ranking, because if he ends up in a two-headed committee with Todd Gurley, I'm just making up a hypothetical, then we drop him way down, right? Yeah. I mean, so his landing spot will shift his ranking. But that's why we're just putting up the foundation of the house right now, and then the rankings become dynamic all the way through the offseason.
Just a couple more of these guys I wanted to touch on. Damian Harris, it looks like he's kind of coming into his own. I don't know if they'll even bring back Rex Burkhead. Sony Michel is just – he's complete dust. He's going to be withered away and done. I think Damien Harris is a pretty good own in Dynasty, and I think I like him more. I know I like him more than Devin Singletary, who's a small. Like he's small. He's
5'8", like 205,
4'6", 640.
Yeah,
he can't catch. Like, what does he fucking do? I mean, he's had some nice moments, but look, man, all offseason we heard about how Damien Harris was going to be involved in the receiving game. He's one of probably the top 3 receivers in all of Patriots camp, behind like Edelman and I forgot James White or something like that. We haven't seen that part of his game at all this year. I'm wondering if that part of his game could maybe develop or come along. I know we don't want to bet on the come with him, but from what we've seen, there's no way I'm putting Devin Singletary in my lineups in fantasy football right now. But I have in recent weeks on good playoff bound fantasy football teams been putting Damien Harris in my lineups. And Damian Harris' situation looks like it's going to continue to improve. I understand liking, being attached to that offense with Josh Allen, but Zach Moss is just such a bigger threat than anything that Damian Harris has to deal with. How do you see the dichotomy between those two?
Yeah, all good points. All good points. And I think when we talk about like these clusters of players, it's similar to how you guys do your redraft cheat sheets, where if players are touching, they're mostly interchangeable. But for Dynasty rankings, we want to know which player you should take above the other player. I mean, that's when you're on the clock, you want to know what to do. So everything you said is right, but now we're going into year 3 with Damian Harris, and we haven't had the big breakout, right? So running backs, you want to see when you draft them, you want to see them go right away. The counter argument to that is obviously it doesn't have a lot of tread on the tire. And, traditionally, New England has always had a committee backfield. So they haven't been, they're not really startable. Right. I mean, obviously, if you're pinned against the wall, you can start Damian Harris right now, right? Because it's cleared out. Rex Burkhead is out.
And he's kind of been okay. He's been okay. But what do we want in our PPR Dynasty leagues? We want players that catch the football, or we want players that have good touchdown equity, right? That's how we make our hand. But now we're talking about RB30, right? So we're just talking about startable running backs, not bench depth at this point. So yeah, I mean, Damian Harris is startable as a low-end option, and there is some upside there, but I'm not confident that he's not going to get a backfield mate next year, that his upside won't be limited. So there is upside, and you're making a great case over Devin Singletary, who has a backfield co-starter, let's call him, that is a threat to his workload. So yeah, those two are in a similar tier. And I think it's a week-to-week proposition. It's like, pick your flavor. Which offense do you like? Who's going to be the quarterback of the New England Patriots next year? Is it going to be Cam Newton? Is it Jarrett Stidham? Is it a free agent? We know that Josh Allen is going to be the quarterback. We know that that's going to be one of the top 10 offenses. So when in doubt, I defer to the quarterback, but I don't have a good argument to tell you, hey, I'm right, you're wrong about this guy. It's what's the flavor? What's the quarterback? What's the offense? Okay, 2 more guys I want to talk to you about. And we have this dude, Frank thanks to Michael Yeager, man. I'm just seeing he's asking a bunch of questions. Someone traded a first, 2, and Gibson for Russell, and he ain't cooking. So this guy's saying, Frank Avell's saying, even if he stays in Seattle, Penny being healthy will take away Carson touches. That's true about Penny. And I look at Penny down here, it's like maybe he should be higher up as well. Young, good prospect. We could be betting on the fact that Carson being gone. I can't believe that they spent a first pick on him. But this other guy, I wanted to mention, what about Justin Jackson? Because I couldn't believe he's only going to be 24.
Yeah.
And, it's like I'm looking at the guys like, I mean, how can we be below guys like Darrington Evans and Jordan Wilkins and some, like, we need to move him up into a different tier entirely, I think, because Eckler signed the 4-year, $24.5 million. He's
guaranteed next year. That's it. They can get rid of him in the
2022.
Right. So he's guaranteed to be on the roster, but he's affordable in 22. So as long as he comes through this year, he'll be on that roster the following year, but nothing guaranteed after this year.
Don't you think though that in a Justin Herbert offense, and maybe in an offense where they might stay committed to Austin Eckler, who is a little bit of an injury risk, that Justin Jackson, a guy who, I mean, I know Anthony Lynn won't be there next. Jesus, I hope Anthony Lynn's not there next year. But Anthony Lynn has said that's a key to our running game. He's the most versatile back that we have. All this stuff like that, or not the most versatile. I forgot what he said. The most. I'd have to go back and look at the combine quote from him, but it was the most. Some sort of superlative, like an important back in some important way, and. He's also made quotes that the offense is going to kind of revolve around him. So they like him. Anthony Lynn will be gone, though. He's young. If he does stay in Los Angeles with a young quarterback that we love as much as Herbert, and a good offense, a good division, even if he is a 40-60 type of guy, and he's the sort of between the tackles and goal line guy, those sorts of roles in these kinds of offenses can certainly pay off. And he has the added value of being just a premium level handcuff if anything could happen to Eckler. I mean, we've seen what's happened. Kalen fucking Balaj rose from the grave in this offense this year. Yeah.
So again, good points about Justin Jackson. I think his inability to stay on the field consistently through a few seasons now depresses his ranking. But you're right. When you're getting into this part of the running back rankings, you're not looking who's going to be an every week starter. You're like, hey, who can get me through 2 or 3 weeks if this plausible event happens? And Justin Jackson, probably, I'm making a note as you were talking to push him up. We haven't seen Darrington Evans, so we haven't seen him on an NFL field yet, so we don't really know. Derrick Henry has been like the Terminator in Terminator 2. Just doesn't matter what you do to him, he just keeps ticking. I mean, a lot of punishment, and just he's never even on the injury report. I mean, that's what you love about a player like that. So we may not get to see Darrington Evans. So yes, he probably deserves a tier bump, and that's why we're hashing this out. But Justin Jackson's fragility, his health, it was depressed his ranking for me. But you're right. In some of those leagues where I needed to start him for a couple weeks, he was a useful player, and that's what you're looking for in the 40s and 50s in these rankings.
All right, that's it. That's how we'll end the pod. Thanks to everybody on YouTube for watching, man. We love you guys. Please like, subscribe, fucking, I don't know, just hit some fucking buttons down under there.
Share. That's important.
There
spread
you
the
go.
word of RosterWatch.
Just hit some buttons, share it. We appreciate y'all, man.